Hello, Shoyan here. Last time, I finished framing the pantry floor. We had a bit of trouble with termites. This time, I'm moving on to installing the floor, ceiling and walls and putting up as many shelves as possible. First, I start with the pantry flooring. Originally, I thought I'd just add 2 or 3 joists around the back door and lay the new floorboards over the existing floor. It seemed simple enough, but when I dismantled the floor, I found an unpleasant surprise. In the end, I had to replace all the joists and beams. But now, everything feels clean and new. Once the frame is neatly installed, it almost feels like working on new build. As usual, I'm installing joistless cedar floorboards. I'm securing them with glue and screws, just like I always do. Since the boards are 30 millimeters thick, there's no need to insulate the floor. Installing the new floor also removed the step at the threshold. There used to be a 30 millimeter height difference, but now it's flush, so the area is more accessible. This space includes the back entrance, a small hallway, and a closet, about 5.8 square meters. When the floorboards are laid seamlessly and flat, the space feels much larger. My goal is to create a functional, well-organized pantry here. Now, the floor installation is complete. Now that the floor is done, I'm moving on to the ceiling. I've already removed the ceiling in the closet, but I'll leave the rest of the traditional Japanese-style ceiling. We don't need an overly high ceiling, so the new one will be about 2,350 millimeters. I'll install it just below the old one, since there's a lot of wiring up there, and removing it would cause unnecessary complications. I'm only insulating the ceiling. By lowering it by about 10 centimeters, there's enough room to fit any type of insulation under the old ceiling. About 40 years ago, I built the stairs using a wood called mersawa that wasn't fully dry. When I assembled the steps, I had to use a mallet to join the treads tightly. Now, looking at it, I can see some wide gaps in the front. Since I'm working on the back of the stairs, I'm resecuring them with screws and fixing a few squeaky spots.
아프네. 아프네 너.
Next, I install the ceiling boards. I'm using 10 to 11 millimeter thick cedar boards with knots for both the ceiling and the walls. These boards use tongue and groove joints. The finish on both the ceiling and the walls will be full of knots. Even though this area isn't quite the center of the house, it's close enough that wiring comes in from multiple directions. So I'm creating an access panel here to make it easier for electricians to maintain the existing wiring or add new ones in the future. The previous access panel above the closet was hard to reach, so this time I'm making sure it's more convenient. Building an access panel out of cedar boards is a bit tricky. The boards aren't wide enough, so I have to join 3 together to cover the width. It was barely wide enough and the fit isn't perfect at the back. I'm assembling it with glue, tape, and small screws to secure it to the frame. Now I move on to the walls. As I mentioned earlier, I'm using the same cedar boards as the ceiling. For the kitchen doorway, I'm adding a small frame and installing cedar boards around it. I'm securing 15mm thick furring strips for the tiled section by hammering in concrete nails with glue. Not many people do this kind of work anymore, but if you use the right size concrete nails on the grout joint, it holds well without needing concrete screws. In the area where the closet used to be, I'm reusing the furring strips that held up the old plywood. The spacing is a bit wide, but I'll install the new boards as is. No one will complain about this. We can't store items all the way into the triangular corners under the stairs. But once the space is created, it'll still be useful. So I'm installing boards as far into the corners as possible. Now, I start installing the wall boards. For sloped sections, like under the stairs, it might seem logical to start with the wider front part, but it's actually better to begin with the narrower side and work toward the wider end. That's because the boards are tongue and groove, and it's harder to fit them in from the narrow side. So, I start from the narrow side and work toward the wider side. On the other side of the wall, the boards will end up upside down, but no one will notice. Even though they are full of knots, the finished wall still looks beautiful. Of course, I'm also installing boards under the stairs, so it is like a sloped ceiling. There used to be an external pocket for the sliding door near the doorway, which would often collect dust. I've removed it and now it's a clean finish with a sliding door. Now that I've finished 3 walls, I can work on the frame of the back door. I left it for last so I could keep using the door to go in and out while working. With 3 walls done, it's time to install the boards on the final wall. I remove the door frame, install the wall frame, and insulate the walls. After installing the cedar boards on the last wall, I'll put up the crown molding, also made of cedar. The wall will be fully lined with cedar when complete. I'm leaving the baseboards for later since I plan to attach many vertical supports for the shelves and the baseboards would get in the way. I'll install them at the very end. Now, I move on to the shelves. Shelving can be tricky. Too many shelves can be overkill, and overly wide ones waste space. I've discussed it with my family and considered my wife's needs. What's particularly challenging here is building non-adjustable shelves in such a tight space. As you can see, I'm assembling them one at a time, standing the sideboard, temporarily securing the shelf, and then screwing it in from the side. Then I remove it and build the shelving unit. Since these shelves will likely hold heavy items, I'm using 30mm thick wide boards for stability. While adjustable shelves are great for lighter items or a shoe cabinet, shelves fixed with screws are better for heavier loads. It was a bit tricky to build the shelves in the stairwell where the closet used to be. Even though the external pocket for the sliding door is gone and it looks cleaner, vertical supports are needed, so the layout ended up similar to before. Installing the 3 shelves under the sloped ceiling was especially challenging. For the lowest shelf under the stairs, I used a 600mm wide board to try to maximize the space. But the triangular corner didn't allow for the full width, so I trimmed it down. That way, people can take 1 or 2 more steps into the pantry. Now that I've removed the back door, I'm installing charred cedar siding on the exterior. It won't look exactly like the other siding, but by using the same color, it should blend in well enough. Finally, I install the baseboards and attach a thin strip of wood along the sloped stair section, which we call himo in Japanese. Then, I place a piece of wood vertically without securing it to ensure the shelves don't sag. Now, the pantry storage next to the kitchen is complete. The space hasn't changed, but I've lined everything with cedar and added as many shelves as my wife requested. It should provide plenty of storage now. If she still complains, karma will get her. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.